Good morning once again. I want to thank you for being with us this morning as we take some time to review the Adult Education Virtual School RFP. My name is Paula Jurigian and I'm a program specialist at ACLS. Glad to be with you this morning, and we're going to do a walkthrough of the RFP, have time for your questions, make any clarifications that we possibly can, and of course anything that we can't clarify right away we will be posting on the Q&A that will include not only the questions from this morning but any that are emailed to us through the ABE RFP mailbox. So I'm going to ask today that when you do have a question that you type it into the chat to make sure that we have record of your question so we can be sure to post the responses to all questions. And with me, Toby McGuire, my Vaughn Stevens Carter are here to both answer questions. I don't know if they want to say a quick hello. Yep. Yeah. So
Morning.
So again, thank you for joining us, and we're going to just jump right in. So our plan this morning is to do an overview of the RFP, to share the timeline for proposals to be submitted, go through the required forms, talk about the actual submission, and of course, answer your questions. We will stop periodically as we're going through the morning to answer any questions that you do have. And again, please type the questions into the chat if you just joined us. I want to make sure that everyone had that message. Okay. So as you're aware, the RFP was posted, and the purpose is, and I'm not going to obviously read the slide to you, but the purpose is to establish a statewide adult education virtual school. We want to stress that statewide is a very important part of this, this proposal. We're looking to bring the service to the entire state with a provider that does become the provider for the AEVS. And also to stress that all services must be delivered virtually. I'm going to give you a second to read what's there. This may be familiar to many of you who did have a chance to look at the RFP closely. The provider doing all phases of recruitment, intake, orientations, all those things that are currently included in our calc programming are also part of the virtual school. The additional piece that we want to stress is that the provider will be marketing, developing, managing, implementing, and evaluating the virtual school. And we stress the marketing. That's a significant piece of the development of the virtual school services.
Oh, geez, Louise.
So continuing on with our purpose, the four areas that we have here, the attaining of secondary school credential, the literacy and knowledge and skills for employment and economic self-sufficiency, serving English language learners, and finally, obtaining education and skills that are necessary to become partners, should look familiar. They're not a new set of purposes and priorities, but they are among the range of potential services that would be offered through the virtual school. And then talking about requirements. So we, as we've stated there, we have at ACLS have not developed specific policies for the virtual school. Our intent is that the current policies for effective Massachusetts effective adult education should serve as a strong reference. And of course, we do reserve the right to look with the provider at the policies that don't directly apply, but we do expect the policies that are in place for our Calc and AECI programs to also be policies for the virtual school. I want to just stress that the requirements that we list there are not an exhaustive list. So although those are things which are required, there are things that also would be required, expected, such as using our state data system, places to record data, and in the interest of space and time, obviously, we couldn't list every last thing that's required. And then finally, our next, not finally, but our next slide, just looking at the eligible agencies and organizations that we invite to consider making proposals. So you can see it's a very, very broad list of eligible agencies and organizations. And we also are looking at the opportunity for more than one agency could partner with another agency, and in any combination of that list that you see there. So I've shared a lot of information already. I want to just take a pause. So I'm going to address questions from my colleagues here that I'm just seeing and hearing for the first time. So there's a question. Toby?
Okay.
That's not me. Could we ask everyone to mute themselves?
I see a Judy's question there. All right, we'll try it again. We have some feedback going on in the office, so I'm going to hold off for 1 second, please. Okay, so right now we are going to be awarding one grant, and that can be, that lead agency could have subcontractors, and all proposed services. You will see in an upcoming slide what's actually required, and that yes, you can propose things above and beyond the requirement, but we'll hold off on the exact requirements there. Let's see. I'm just going to try to scroll down here. This right now, it's we're posting for a multi-year contract. It will start. Again, we have another slide in fiscal year 22 for services that have to begin in 23. There's opportunity for refunding after that as funds are available. The grant, so We've got, are there established partnerships with organizations across Massachusetts to help recruit students? There are not run by us. It's going to be up to the responsibility of the grantee to market and recruit across the system, across the state, excuse me. Is this considered a demonstration project? Yeah, I'm not sure what the answer to that would be. Maybe you could clarify that. When do we expect the program to be up and running? So the grant will cover startup costs in fiscal year 22. We expect early, as soon as possible, in FY23 up and running. Mariana's question, by one provider, do you mean something like a hub? Sure.
So the provider is the provider for the state. We're not equating it to a former model hub. It's a provider that will provide services to students that it has recruited, oriented, assessed, enrolled. So I would not call it a hub. It is a state provider.
But what are our, like if we apply, what our roles will be?
I don't know who our is.
Schools or
So
school
the-
or school can be a provider, is considered a provider.
The bid, the award will be made to an entity which will be fully responsible for all services.
So for clarification, similar to the K-12 system that has schools operating in every district, and they have 2 virtual schools that serve other students. So we are creating a similar process, a similar system in adult education where we will have our currently funded services operating in the manner that they are. And we want to establish a virtual school that will offer online instruction for students to any student in the state who needs it. And the provider who wins this bid will propose how they intend to serve any student in the state at the various levels that they're proposing. In their bid.
So I'm actually going to go back to one of our previous slides, if I can do that, because we did, let's clear my way here. So we did, under the requirements, look at the seats. So I want to go slowly through the second half of this slide, particularly looking at number 2. I'm on slide 6. So the provider will deliver a program design which includes synchronous and asynchronous instruction. The provider will serve ASC students at NRS levels 5 and 6. That is a requirement. Additional NRS levels can be proposed by the applicant. So we are not naming the specific services beyond the ABE students served at levels NRS levels 5 and 6 that must be served. Others can definitely be served. the minimum number of participants, and again, the minimum is 50 participants, 50 enrollments on a monthly basis. I think that answers a number of the questions that were in the chat regarding seats and services, but I am going to pause again to see if there were any additional questions that.
And I saw
address
that,
those.
this is Toby, and I saw the clarification regarding demonstration. Right now, the purpose is not to demonstrate something that's going to lead to multiple providers. You know, we could learn a lot in the next year or two and shift away from that, but right now, our intent is to establish a virtual school with a single provider. That's the intent of this RFP. If it were a demonstration for something that's going to be replicated, we would have named it.
Still scanning the chat to see if there's anything that we've missed. So I do see a question that says, if we do not apply in the first application process, will new applicants be allowed to apply under this funding scheme? This funding scheme is for applicants to apply. This is the application process.
Yes, we are requiring NRS 5 and 6. Applicants can submit proposals that include ESOL, any NRS. Almost I can't hear. I'm sorry. So for Maria's clarification there, it's a requirement to propose a design for NRS levels 5 and 6. That's ASE levels. But if you wanted to include other levels, including the ESOL levels, you can do that as well.
I think we have covered all of the questions in the current chat. I'm going to move on to some additional slides, and I know we'll have more time for questions following that. So I want to clarify the funding. So as you see, we anticipate approximately $1 million to be available statewide for the provider, providing statewide services. The final budget will be based on the provider's proposed number of students served and aligning that with funding for current parameters for calcs. You see our note, which I'm actually going to read because I think it will answer some questions that will come up around funding. So during the current funding cycle, ACLS grants awards for the provision of services during the academic year, September to June, based on a cost per student enrollment of between $2,800 and $3,500 for community adult learning center grants. Awards are calculated based on the approved per student cost enrolled multiplied by the average monthly enrollment. So 50 students, 200 students at $3,000 per student is a base award of $600,000. So we anticipate upward adjustments to these funding levels in future years due to increased labor and service costs. So AVS applicants that provide sufficient rationale may propose budgets based on a cost per student enrollment up to $4,500. The providers selected will operate under the Title II Adult Education and Family Literacy Act. And you see eligible students are those that are at least 16 years of age, not enrolled or required to be enrolled in secondary school under state law, and those that do not have a secondary school diploma or its recognized equivalent, and if not, not have an equivalent level of education or basic skills deficient or English language learners. You see the preferred student population, and you can see the broad scope of preferences, but I want to highlight the very first bullet for you. Adult learners never enrolled in a DESE-funded adult education program. So our intent and our hope is to reach the many individuals who are in need of services, who have not yet engaged with the adult education system for a variety of reasons. And that this opportunity will expand the system across the state, and particularly offering opportunities where those opportunities have been scarce or not equitably available. Our services and activity. All services need to be offered virtually. The virtual services, instructional services, are to be aligned with the Mass ALPS and the CCRSAE. And that bottom bullet, funds cannot be used to support in-person activities. Okay, we're going to stop again for questions. Just a second. So in answer to one of the questions posed, the grantee who wins the bid will be the sole provider for the grant, period, under this RFP. If another RFP is posted, then anyone could apply. In answer to an additional question, agencies may partner, and through the application, one of those agencies would be the lead agency. In answer to the question regarding a consortium, a consortium would be considered a sole applicant. There's a question asking how this RFP would impact the current system. And oops, and as we noted in this priority, the intent, the goal of this system is really to impact students who have never been enrolled or are not currently enrolled, recently enrolled in DESE funded programs. So the intent is not to have an impact on the current programs, but potentially to offer students who are not served at the current programs who may come to the program as well as another referral opportunity. Question regarding the timeline. I will go through the timeline. There is not a chance that the timeline will be changed. We can move to that timeline now if there aren't any other.
The synchronous learning question.
I didn't see it. Yep, give me 1 second. So to the synchronous learning question, the question reads, do you expect cohort-based and or live online classes? So the answer to that is yes, potentially. It's completely up to the provider though, to determine how that synchronous model will be scheduled, developed. We have no specific requirement about how that synchronous and asynchronous instruction will be delivered. Regarding technology being available to students, we would expect it to be part of the screening process. Generally, someone that chose to study remote would have that access.
Just kidding. Here.
We also regarding the device question, we would hope that through different parts of the state, there were opportunities for students who did not have but need technology to have the opportunity to obtain that technology through local programs and opportunities, whether that be something that the community provides, with the intent that there be an equitable opportunity for devices for anyone that were wanting to study in this way. I'm going to address the question if we could write that cost into our proposal. I'm thinking that's the technology question. If that opportunity for those devices across the entire state were equitable, it could be written into the proposal, but it couldn't be an inequitable particular region that had the opportunity for devices delivered, particular area. question, is the provider able to work with schools or school counselors? We will get back to you on that question. It's not our intent to tell the applicant how to make those connections in recruitment, but we will further expand on that in the Q&A. So to the question, do all 50 students need to be served per month at NRS 5 to 6? Yes, that is the 50 student requirement. Any additional students beyond the 50 could potentially be at other levels in other services. So the needing to be white label question, if someone could elaborate that, I'm not familiar with what that means. Yes, to repeat, a consortia can apply. Okay, well, I'm going to take a look at the timeline with you, and please, again, continue the questions in the chat. Okay. So the RFP that's currently posted, upon approval through June 30th, 2022, and then the additional 2 years of renewal. But as we've stated, this 2022 year, with the short number of months, is a startup potential of a pilot, but a startup time with the expectations that services to students begin July 1 in FY23. Following our bidders conference today, if there are any additional questions, you see there the ABE RFP at mass.gov mailbox. Questions will be answered and posted to the ACLS web page that come through that mailbox. Questions will not be accepted verbally or through other email addresses. And proposals need to be submitted electronically to the department no later than 5 p.m. on Friday, January 28th. To the question, if the provider is currently funded, would the director be able to attend to both programs without double dipping? So any one individual on contracts wouldn't have more than one FTE. Kevin, I'm not sure if that addresses the question.
If there's a clarifying question or something you want to provide a little clarity, you can unmute yourself and ask. But this contract is separate and apart from any other contracts that we have in adult education. And if someone is currently providing one FTE on their current funded contract, they could not in any way, shape, form, or fashion be on the second contract. So, yeah, so there's no double dipping, no staffing can be, unless they're 50-50. So yeah, basically this is a separate entity. Students who are going to the virtual school will not be students in a CALC unless they're going to the CALC and to the virtual school. So this is a separate funding stream to serve additional students statewide. And we are looking for, when we think about a 50 minimum, we're not thinking that this virtual school for $1 million will only serve 50 students. We want to build capacity in the state to serve as many students as possible in this new manner. And we're looking for an applicant who proposes how we can expand and grow and touch the 18,000 students that are not currently being served across the state and need an adult education equivalency diploma.
Maria, I do see your hand up just because it's there, but please use the chat for questions. Or if you want to unmute for a clarification.
It will be easier for me if I say the question rather. I'm trying to figure out how. So my question has to do with the timeline. I'm not clear. So the award will be made for this project to start July 1st, 2022.
No, this award will be made for this current fiscal year. There are two budgets in the RFP. One for the time upon award through June 30th of 2022, and the other for July 1, 2022 through June 30th of 2023. So there are in the budget workbook two separate budget tabs.
So I assume that between until June 2022, there will be some planning and work and all of this so that the services will have to start July 2022. And since it's a school, basically, it's going to be most likely September through June 22 to 23.
Well, the proposed timeline for services would be up to the applicant. They could be as soon as July 1. They could be piloted prior to July 1. I mean, it's completely up to the applicant when the services would begin upon award as provider.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
So we anticipate upon award up until June of 2022 that the applicant would be proposing to do intensive marketing, recruitment, designing of plans, potentially if the applicant wanted to pilot a course or two during that prior to FY23, that would be allowed if that's what they chose to do. But we anticipate the full bank of services starting in FY23.
Paula, I think you're talking, but you're on mute.
I'm muted. Thank you very much. So the required forms that are listed right on the on the page with the RFP, part 1, the general signature page, the budget workbook, which again has sections for a budget for upon approval through June 30th of 2022, and then the next fiscal year, July 1, 2022 through June 30th of 2023. The narrative of the required program information is the section for the written narrative for each of those questions. The page limit is 50 pages. Statement of assurances form and the GEPA form. And then within the required program information, you see references to the 5 appendices, executive summary of the proposal, job descriptions, organizational chart, and then a sample completed classroom observation form. Yep. So the question, would the diploma be issued through the Massachusetts Department of Education, or can they be issued through a private entity? Our program currently uses private school diplomas. We will respond to that question in the written Q&A, and not at this time, but it will be in the written Q&A. There is not a match requirement for this. Okay, I'm going to move on to the submission portal. So the submission of the material will be done through WiseHive. I'm going to attempt to click on my live link and show you that when you click on this link, this is what you will see. Didn't move. Okay. I'm going to reshare. So this is what you will see when you are looking to create an account to share your proposal. For everyone that has currently used WiseHive, If you try your existing credential and it does not work, sign up with that same credential. It will not affect your existing credential. Once you do, either create a new or use your existing. 1 second. Do you see it? Okay. You will see the portal that looks like this. Everything with an asterisk is required. You see here the 2 different funding requests, the remainder of FY22 and FY23, which should match what is in your budget workbook. The opportunity to upload the required forms and the appendices. And then finally, as you work on the submission, each time you want to save your draft, only when you are completely ready to submit, hit that submit button, because once it's submitted, it can't be edited. Stop that share. Go back to so what you just saw is here, entering your basic info, creating an account in WiseHive. If there are any questions that arise after January 7th regarding the workbook or WiseHive, you find my email here. That is the end.
Yeah.
I'm going to the question regarding tech and hardware for students answered. If the proposing agency has the capacity to distribute devices, tech for students equally across the state, that certainly could be written into the proposal. It is not something that's required. Okay, I'm gonna. We're done with the slides. I'm going to stop my share, and we certainly can open up for clarifications or questions. Can we review the student eligibility requirements? Sure. So the eligible students would be students that are at least 16 years of age, not enrolled or required to be enrolled in secondary school under state law, and do not have a secondary school diploma or its equivalent, and have not an equivalent level of education or a basic skills deficient or are English language learners. We will not be prescribing a specific online learning tool. That is at the open to the proposal of by the applicant. The deadline for this proposal is very tight, but we are not able to change that deadline. Does the provider need to use learning material provided by ACLS? Learning material needs to be aligned to the CCRSAE and MassAlps if ESOL is proposed, but the material does not need to be provided by ACLS. Right, actually, it won't be provided by ACLS. We do want to clarify that, I'm sorry, hold on just a second. We do want to clarify that student eligibility is to serve Massachusetts residents. We want to allow 1 or 2 minutes for additional questions. Please feel free to put them forward. If we don't have any additional questions, we will complete our bidders conference. Question is, can you please review the slide about outreach? Jen, if you could unmute, be a little more specific. We don't have a specific slide about outreach.
Oh, okay. I just heard mention of outreach because I'm sorry, I came in a little bit late. So I just wanted to see what I had missed of it, the information about outreach.
Okay. Yeah, we do want to clarify that everything you see on the slides comes directly from the RFP. We will post the slides, but there is no additional content beyond what is on the RFP. Let me do this. That's what I was just gonna suggest. We are going to put a link to the RFP in the chat. Where will the slides be posted and when? Okay, I will, no, not there. You could put that too. We will also put in the chat a link to where the slides and the Q&A will be posted. Okay, Toby has just posted the link to where the RFP, the Q&A will go below that top bullet, which is the RFP, will be a second made live link with the recording, slides, and the Q&A. Oh, I'm sorry. Clarification, it will be the slides and the Q&A. Do we have any other questions? Clarifications?
Paula, I have a question.
Sure.
It might be a little lengthy in the chat box. If an agency is awarded the funding from, say, January or February through June 30th, I think it said on your slide that it was conditional for FY23 and FY24. Would that agency have to rewrite or for FY23, or that's an automatic?
Thank you for asking that question. So the provider will have the funding through the few months of FY22 and all of FY23.
Okay.
Contingent for refunding after that time.
All right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Can I just ask one question?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yep.
The narrative questions. I tried to log in. I went to the portal and tried to log in, and it did not allow me. I think it needs a password to change. Is that my question? Is it's only through the portal that we can see the questions, right?
No, they're posted with the RFP. Give me 1 second. I'm going to share my.
I was trying to find them and I wasn't able to. I'm so sorry about that.
That's okay. I will share my screen.
Yes, please. Thank
Give me
you.
1 second.
You know, it's up to 50 pages. It sounds to me that there are lots of questions, and so that might be one of the things one may consider whether they apply or not.
Okay, yep. So do you see my screen scrolling down?
Yep.
So I am at required program information part 3.
Oh, here it is.
Yep, and it is a Word document that will open.
I'm
And
sorry. Thank you. Thank you.
can you see it? Okay. So I just stopped the share so you can actually see the document here. The question is, are resumes included in the 50-page maximum? No, the attachments, the appendices are not included in the 50-page total. And 50 pages is obviously the maximum. If you're able to say what you need to in less than 50 pages, that is fine as well. Okay, not hearing any other questions. We want to thank you for being with us today. Any further questions, please use the mailbox listed on the RFP. And we thank you for being with us.